So the quartering just went on another one of his trans rights meltdowns. And look, I don't want to keep making videos on this guy. I said that I'm bored with it. I tweeted out, do you guys really want me to make another quartering video, or do you just finally understand who this guy really is? You guys said that you wanted it, so here you go. Here is another meltdown from the quartering. Hopefully after this video, you'll fully understand that this guy, just who he really is, man. He's just a soy boy who's going to have trans rights meltdowns on Twitter every once in a while. And I think he probably would have deleted this one as well if I didn't immediately tweet or replied to his tweet saying it's screenshotted and saying that I think he's going to delete it in a few minutes. I think that if me and other people weren't replying to the tweet saying that we knew he was going to delete it, he probably would have deleted this too, because that's just what he does, dude. I don't know if he was drinking at this time, but normally he gets drunk. He has a soy boy meltdown about trans rights or some other SJW issue, and he'll have a meltdown on Twitter where all his fans tell him he's wrong, and he ends up deleting it, and sometimes, if it gets bad enough, he'll apologize on his YouTube channel. But here we go. Here is yet another meltdown from the quartering. He says, PragerU tweeted out this: men should not wear dresses. And of course, the quartering takes major offense to the fact that men should not wear dresses. He takes big offense to that. He says, who gives a shit? The left has total control of the right's minds by simply deploying a few drag queens and a handful of trans people. Jeremy continuing his look at how moderate I am kick I see. And of course, this person is in here and he probably just, he's probably a big Jeremy fan, which is nothing wrong with that. And he says, isn't he though? Like, he's always been a moderate liberal. I don't know. I've never heard him call himself that, but I don't watch all of his content, so I don't know if that's the case or not. Here is the tweet that really got me going. This is what got me involved in the situation. Shout out to Diligent Dennison. He tweeted this picture out and said, speaking of deploying a few drag queens and a handful of trans people, and it's the quartering and Blair White, and it, photoshopped into the Brokeback Mountain scene. And the quartering responds to this and says, is this supposed to be an own? I'll spend some time in the mountains with Miss Blair White, which is just, you can make your own assumptions about what he means by that, but that's pretty wild. And Blair White responded and says, LFG. So let's effing go is what he says. And I said, this is where I said, well, this is definitely screenshotted. And this guy, currently something's happening news, said, you're not surprised. I like that about you. I'm not surprised whatsoever, dude. I knew, I called this a long time ago. He wants Blair White. That's why he simps so bad for him. He wants him. There's no way getting around it, dude. He wants Blair White for some things that, you do in the mountains, in Brokeback Mountain. That's what he wants him for. But yeah, there's a lot of people who were coming after him on this one. And of course, whenever the quartering gets backlash on one of his tweets, he doesn't ever take kindly to it. Let's check out what he said to all the people calling him out under that tweet. This person said, Blair White is just another Dylan Mulvaney. If that is your legitimate level of understanding, please kindly take some time to grow. Now, look, this is a video for another time, right? This is going to be a really long video or a long live stream. I would love to maybe do a call-in show later tonight, and maybe we can discuss this topic. I don't personally see much of a difference between Blair White and Dylan Mulvaney, even if Blair White isn't spreading the same messages as Dylan Mulvaney. Just Blair White's existence is almost as bad as Dylan Mulvaney. It's not as bad. It's definitely not as bad, but it's almost as bad as Dylan Mulvaney. Because if you think about, imagine you're a parent, right? And you have a kid, and they're hanging out with a drug addict. They always say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or however the saying goes, right? Blair White is kind of the same thing. He just exists to shift the Overton window. Blair White is existing in a space and celebrated by the space that actively fights against the trans ideology, actively fights against people like Dylan Mulvaney, existing in the same space as people who are fans of Matt Walsh. People who are fans of Matt Walsh will defend Blair White whenever I say that Blair White shouldn't exist in this space. And because Blair White is on our side with a lot of the topics, he's celebrated. It's crazy to me because, like I was saying earlier, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Even if Blair White is talking about things that you agree with, just the fact that they exist in this space is bad because it's shifting the Overton window. If you're a parent, you wouldn't allow your kid to hang around drug addicts. And in this situation, in this hypothetical, Blair White is the drug addict or one of the drug addicts. You wouldn't allow your child to hang out with drug addicts just because your child tells you that they're not pushing drugs on you. They're actually saying to stay clean, stay away from drugs, is what those kids are telling your kid. In this case, Blair White is a drug addict, and they're telling us to stay away from drug addicts. He's telling us to stop, he's telling us and others, he's preaching to his audience that they shouldn't be pushing the trans ideology. It's the same thing as a drug addict, as you hanging around a drug addict and expecting to not turn into one yourself simply because they're telling you to not do drugs. It doesn't make any sense. The simple fact that Blair White exists is almost as bad as Dylan Mulvaney existing, except Dylan Mulvaney just, preaches the trans ideology hardcore. That's the only difference. He also says, it's so wild how different my Twitter following is from my YouTube. This is what he says every single time. It's like a copy and paste tweet. Like I said, getting bored with this stuff, man. I've basically been moderate or centrist, oh, there he goes, as a content creator for 6 or 7 years, and people are shitting and pissing themselves whenever I display the same views here on Twitter. A small refresher. I have voted Republican, Democrat, and third party in my life. I am pro the tiniest government possible, fiscally conservative, but liberal on many other issues. I don't give a shit about adults living their lives the way they want to, providing it's legal and not infringing on others. I want people to have a reasonable path to citizenship. I want our country to protect the environment in smart, practical ways, not policing cow farts, etc. I am 100% anti-war unless we are defending our own soil and support our military and police. I don't give a F about drag shows or drag queens as long as they're performing for adults. I don't care about gay marriage as long as they are adults. I don't care if adults want to chop their tits off, again, as long as it isn't done to children. Are you picking up a pattern? The indifference, though, to me, this is my personal opinion. You can have whatever opinion you want. To me, the indifference about adults chopping their tits off is an issue in itself, because the indifference is how we got to where we are today. The accepting, the compassionate mindset, the indifference is an issue, but that's for another time. I am not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I don't care what you are either. I enjoy disagreeing more than agreeing, but I wanted to clear that up. Yeah, it definitely seems like you enjoy disagreeing quite a bit. By the way, you have a meltdown every single time you get called out by your audience. I'm not demanding you change. I just want you to understand where I am at. And then this person, Wade, responds to that tweet and says, you should cover how you don't understand the grooming issue and maybe just shut the hell up about it. You have one trans friend and think you have to be some kind of savior to that screwed up community. Even the LGBTQ community is starting to get sick of the trans community. He responds to that and said, you sound like you have a deep issue with trans people in general. I don't. You are embracing the shield of Save the Kids to cover what seems just like a deeply rooted issue and make your hate seem righteous and justified. Be better. I think he's wrong, man. I just think he's wrong here. And I could go into it, but I just think that this video is already going to be pretty long. I don't want to make it extremely long. Maybe I'll go into this on live stream later. But I just think that the indifference is a big issue. Like, I think that is how we got to the point that we are today. We have to stop being indifferent about these things and take a strong stance. It doesn't always have to be, if you don't agree with me 100%, you are the other and you must be defeated. But if you agree with having, children pray to pride flags in school, say the Pledge of Allegiance to a pride flag instead of an American flag, things like that, there has to be a hard line drawn where we just don't accept things like that. It can't be a live and let live situation when it comes to indoctrination that's that hardcore. I understand, and I somewhat agree with the live and let live mentality, the philosophy. But that's how we got to where we are today. So it's just not working, because one side lives by the live and let live philosophy and the other side is indoctrinating children and pushing this agenda that's extremely harmful to the Western world. Extremely harmful. This person replies and says, mutilating your genitals is bad, actually. And he says, so don't. But the thing is, man, you're teaching all these children that it's okay to do it. And the existence of Blair White is shifting the Overton window, which in turn is making more people more open-minded to doing that stuff. Even if he doesn't preach those things directly, the existence of Blair White is furthering that ideology. He also says this, responds to this tweet, I have deep issues with trans people when they enact laws to strip a child from their parents because the parents don't want to give their kid a sex change. He says, I got news for you, kiddo. A trans person didn't enact this law. A straight cis person did. So using the cis stuff, that leftist word. But I don't think that this person here was saying that a trans person enacted the law. I have deep issues with trans people when they enact laws. I think he's saying I have deep issues with trans people, when they enact laws, because they are enacting laws to strip a child from their parents because the parents don't want to give their child a sex change. I don't think it matters who enacted the law. Honestly, even if he was saying that, even if he wasn't, it doesn't matter who's enacting the law. It's the simple fact that the law exists, and it's because trans people exist and are pushing this ideology even further, like Dylan Mulvaney, and also, once again, like Blair White existing is pushing that ideology further. And I don't care if you disagree. That's just what I think. I think we need to take a hard stance, and the people who are extremely accepting and celebrating of Blair White are part of the problem. He also says this, I feel like I've always preached to separate the ideas from the individual, espousing them. Collectivism is bad and always has been. It's been a primary criticism of leftism for years, but now the right is just going ahead and adopting their same tactics, and I hate it. Nuance is dead. Yes, it is indeed. The left killed it. But if the right keeps living by the philosophy of having nuance, having compassion for everything, then we're just going to continue to lose. And I wouldn't even identify as right wing, But I do know that the right wing people have a lot more good faith in them. You know, the people on the right are a lot more good faith than the people on the left. And they just align with what I want the world to look like a lot more than the left. So, you know, I'm going to fight on their side, man. Like, what choice do I have? Fight for a third party? I'm good. That's never going to be a winning battle, ever. There's two sides. It's a bipartisan country that we live in. It is what it is, man. You got to fight for the one who has, you know, more good faith, who is going to make the country and the world the best place possible. My feed is almost exclusively overrun with blind hate, and it feels pointless to try and talk some folks back down to civil conversation. You can hate what one trans person does and not hate all trans people. It's the same effing shit the left does. It's all so tiresome. I don't hate trans people. I just think that their existence in social media, you know, pushing that ideology forward, which their existence, if they do have a big presence on social media, whether you agree or not, it is pushing that ideology forward. It just is. I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist at all. I'm not saying they should die. I'm just saying that their existence on social media and the fact that people on the right and people who are against the trans ideology celebrate certain trans people like Blair White is an issue. It's an issue. It just is. The incoming people rationalizing their spurgery will all say it's about the kids, but can't name a single school board member in their own towns. They haven't voted locally in years. They aren't involved in their own communities. They are on Twitter angry. And lastly, he responds to Paul Thompson saying, "You wouldn't know, you're too busy posting cringe YouTube shorts and asking others what you should create for content. Be better. Join the young turds. I haven't posted a short in weeks. You wouldn't know that if you watch my videos," is what he says. So there is the Quartering's newest meltdown. Like I said, I might be doing a live stream tonight to go in depth on it, maybe do some call-ins. So if you want to see that, make sure you hit subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Let me know what you think about this whole meltdown from the Quartering, by the way, in the comments. And I hope to see you on the next one.